All right, chapter 4, this first section is on piecewise functions. And a piecewise function is disconnected. So you just have to look at each section piece by piece, and that's hilarious. Okay, so when a piecewise function is graphed, they look like multiple pieces. We know it's a piecewise below because it is disjointed, or basically unconnected. Or not continuous. All right, so when you're reading this graph, you're going to find f of 3 just means you go 1, 2, 3, and then travel up 1, 2, 3. So that point right there is 3, 3. So the answer to f of 3 is 3. F of negative 3, I'm going to go back 1, 2, 3. And you have two choices. You have these two places, but it's really important to look at whether it's filled in or not filled in. So this one right here is filled in. So this is the point 1, 2, 3, negative 3, comma 2 versus negative 3, comma 4. And the one that is filled in is your answer. So this answer is 2. F of 0 has one selection. So that point right there would be 0, comma 1. F of 2 kind of gives us the same scenario here. You have kind of an upward choice and a downward choice, but because this is a filled in circle, this is the only actual answer. So F of 2 would be negative 1. F of negative 127, you'll notice that this is continuous. So this is flattened out at, I kind of think of it as at a height of 2. So it's continuous. So I know that it would be a height of 2 for that entire graph. Okay, so let's look at page 2. So this one is not a graph, it's equations. So you'll just have to know the correct one to plug it into. So this one says f of 3. So our two choices are three choices are x is less than or equal to negative 3. Well, that's not true for that. Between negative 3 and positive 2, so that's not it, or x is greater than 2. So this means I'm going to choose that equation. So I'm going to choose the 2x minus 3 equation. So I'm going to plug in 2 times 3 minus 3. So that's 6 minus 3 is 3. Now f of negative 3, sorry. So for this one, I'm going to choose the first option. X is less than or equal to negative 3. So that just means that it's a constant function. So this one just happens to be 2. So that's nice. Didn't really even have to do any math. So f of 0, so 0 sits monkey in the middle between negative 3 and positive 2. So that means I'm going to choose this equation. So I'm going to choose negative x plus 1. Okay, so then if I'm plugging in a 0, negative 0, which is kind of funny, plus 1 is just 0. So that one is 1. Now 2 also sits in this category because it says x is less than or equal to 2, whereas this one says x is greater than 2. So I'm going to have to choose the middle one. So I'm choosing the negative x plus 1 equation. So I'm going to plug in negative 2 plus 1 makes this equal negative 1. Then negative 127, so that's going to fall into this category. X is less than negative 3, and it comes back to that constant function of 2. Sorry, having trouble talking today. All right, so these next two examples make us do this again. So you have 1, 2, 3 categories, and you just have to figure out what number these fall into. So f of 1, so this one, the first choice was when things were less than negative 1. The second choice was if it's between negative 1 and 3, and then the last choice is if it's purely greater than 3. So 1 sits in the middle, so that means that this is my equation for this one. So that's 2x squared plus 3. So I'm going to plug in the 1, So 2, and then 1 squared plus 3. So 1 squared is 1, times 2 is 2, plus 3 is 5. Okay, f of 6. So 6 is greater than 3. Okay, so that means I'm going to choose this equation. So I'm going to choose negative 1/3 x minus 2, and I'm going to plug in a 6. So negative 1/3, 6. Okay, so 1/3 of 6 is the same thing as 6 divided by 3, so that's 2. But times negative 1 is negative 2. And then subtract 2 more makes this negative 4. Now f of 3, the reason this one is starred is you have to choose, 3 is kind of an option in both of these choices, but one of them has the equal to underneath and one of them doesn't have the equal to underneath. So in this case, I'm going to have to go with the second option. So I'm choosing 2x squared plus 3. So now I'm going to put 2 and then 3 squared plus 3. Okay, so 3 squared is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 18 plus 3 is 21. Okay, and then they starred the last option here. So negative 1, I'm going to look at both of these options. And this one says x is less than or equal to negative 1. And then this one with the negative 1 didn't have the equal to underneath. So that means in this case, I have to choose my first equation. So 2x minus 1. Now plug in the negative 1. So 2 times negative 1 minus 1 more. So negative 2 minus 1 more is negative 3. All right, then in this option, let's see, negative 4. So negative 4 would sit in the first category where it's less than negative 2. So this is going to be a constant function of 2. Negative 1 is going to sit in the middle here. So I'm going to choose x to the third minus 5. So negative 1 to the third power minus 5. So that's negative 1 minus 5 more is negative 6. Negative 2, so they've started. So you have to look at these two options because they both have this negative 2 in them. But this one doesn't have equals. This one does have equal. So I'm going to choose x to the third minus 5. Okay, so negative 2 to the third power minus 5 more. So negative 2 to the third power is negative 2, negative 2, negative 2, all multiplied together equals negative 8. So negative 8 minus 5 more is negative 13. And then g of 5. Okay, so x is greater than or equal to 5 just means that it's going to equal x. So I'm going to plug in x, so that's going to be plugging in a 5. So this one equals 5. That one's kind of weird and tricky.